Hare Krishna, good morning. So today we will be continuing the discussion of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 50, verses 15 and 16. And I'm going to lightly touch on these two verses because I would like to read some excerpts from this book, Chaitanya Bhagavat, about the glories of Lord Nityananda, because after yesterday, which was a very special day, and after the program yesterday evening, which very exultant and full of enthusiasm and power, Shakti, it's very difficult to let go of these thoughts about Lord Nityananda. In actuality, it's not like the day is gone and now we're moving forward to something else. No, we bring Lord Nityananda with us throughout the rest of the year and for years to come, as we will bring Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur with us, and also, of course, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and all the great personalities that we normally celebrate, all the associates of the Supreme Lord in his various forms and activities. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Jaya Radha Madhava Kanya Vihari. Jaya Radha Kanya Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Varachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari. Dhammala Kunya Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Girivaradhari. Jasodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Andana Vraja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Namo Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtara Satta His Divine Grace A. Sivakanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Shri Shri Krishna Gopakupinath Shama Sundara Kunda Giri Govardham Ki Vrindavan Dham Ki Mathura Dham Navadvita Vikan Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Yamuna Mai Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Brihan Mirdanga Ki Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Hare Nam Sankirtan Ki Book Distribution Ki Prasad Distribution Ki All Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees All glories to the assembled devotees all glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we're looking at again Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 50, verses 15 and 16. Evam samantriya dasharho Damshito ratino purat Nijakmatuhu swadhutadhyau Balinal piyasavrito Evam samantriya darshaho Damshito rahino purat Nijakmatu svayudhadhyo Balinal piyasavrito. Devotees, please. Evam samatriya darsharha Tamshitauratina purat Nirjakmatu svayudhadhyo Balinal piyasavrito. Manilal Pia Savita. Ladies. Synonyms. Evam, thus. Samantriya, inviting him. Dasharha, the two descendants of the Sharha, Krishna and Balaram. Damshita, wearing armor. Ratina, riding their chariots. Purat, from the city. Nirjakmatuhu, went out. Swa, their own. Ayudha, with weapons. Adhyal, resplendent. Balena, by force. Alpiyasa, very small. Vrita, accompanied. Translation. After Lord Krishna had thus invited his brother, the two Dasharhas, Krishna and Balaram, wearing armor and displaying their resplendent weapons, drove out of the city in their chariots. Only a very small contingent of soldiers accompanied them. Please repeat. After Lord Krishna had thus invited his brother, the two Dasharhas, Krishna and Balaram, wearing armor and displaying their resplendent weapons, drove out of the city in their chariots. Only a very small contingent of soldiers accompanied them. E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishnavanusute Devi Pranamami Haribhya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyavacha Patitanam Pavaneri Vaishnavi Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Where? Oh, thank you. So there's a commentary by Srila Jiva Goswami on this verse, 10:50-15. As part of their pastimes, they identified themselves as the Sharhas and wore armor. The Sharha was a member of the family from times way before that was apparently a very valiant and courageous king. And so to represent the family lineage, they identify themselves as members of the Sharha line. Because of the strength of Jarasanda's army, the army appeared small in comparison. According to Hari Vamsa, Vikradu gave bad advice, and they were surrounded by a few of the troops when all Jarasanda's troops came. So this Vikradu, this gentleman, is one of the advisors, and apparently he advised them not to take too many soldiers, infantry soldiers, cavalry, etc. And so they were surrounded by a few of their troops only when Jarasandha had brought a huge amount of 23 Akshahinis, of soldiers. The two were equipped with their weapons. Just by showing those weapons, they made the enemy tremble. So Krishna and Balaram had their weapons, and these are celestial weapons or heavenly weapons or spiritual weapons, we'll see. And just by seeing them, even though they were in appearance young men, youth members, all the soldiers, the opposing army, which was huge army or armies, were completely overcome by fear. Verse 16. Shankam datmo vinirgatya harirdarukasaratihi tattbhut parasanyanam riddvitrasa vipathu. As Lord Krishna came out of the city, this is the next verse. So this is verse number 16. As Lord Krishna came out of the city with Daruka at the reins of a chariot, we know he is the charioteer of Krishna, he blew his conch shell, and the enemy soldiers' hearts began to tremble with fear. And Shiva Goswami writes, Krishna came out of the city in an extraordinary manner, Vinigatya. And Vinigatya means upon going out, but in a very chivalrous manner, ready to conquer the world, so to speak. As Lord Krishna came out of the city with Daruka at the reins of a chariot, he blew his conch shell. Came out of the city in an extraordinary manner, since he was accompanied by Daruka, his chariot driver. This also includes the many wondrous objects from Vakunta. That is now the weapons. And we saw something in reference, actually, to that in verse 12. I'll go back to 12 in a minute. The Lord took away the carriage of the enemy by blowing the conch, and these caused them to tremble in terror. So again, it's explained here that the soldiers of the opposing army, when they see Krishna and Balaram, when they see them with their weapons, when they hear the conch shell, the sound of the conch shell, they tremble in fear, even though, by comparison, the army is very, very small. And then we will see later on, in the next verse of tomorrow, how Jarasandha has a certain amount of disdain for Krishna because, after all, he's not a warrior, and he wants to fight a warrior. But that will be tomorrow. So let me go back to this verse because we need to remember what's been said before in this chapter. It's all relevant. This in verse 11 it says, Shukadev Goswami continued the narration, and he said, as Lord Govinda was thinking in this way, two chariots, as effulgent as the sun, suddenly descended from the sky. He was contemplating the idea of fighting Jarasandha, and at that point, two chariots, as effulgent as the sun, suddenly descended from the sky. They were complete with drivers and equipment. And in verse 12 it says, the Lord's eternal divine weapons also appeared before him spontaneously. In other words, we know that the weapons of the Supreme Lord are conscious, and whenever the Lord is in need of using the weapons immediately submit themselves to his service and facilitate his, quote-unquote, facilitate his task. Of course, the Lord can do anything, but the weapons are servants, and they feel like they need to facilitate the task of the Lord. And so he gives them the opportunity to be used in service to him. Seeing these weapons, Sri Krishna, Lord of the senses, addressed Lord Sankarsana. Now he's talking to Balaram. And he said, my respected elder brother, see this danger which has beset your dependents, the Yadus, and see, dear master, how your personal chariot and favorite weapons have come before you. So now Krishna is talking to Balaram and says, look, all these things have appeared. And your chariot, your favorite weapons. The purpose for which we have taken birth, my Lord, is to secure the welfare of our devotees. Please now remove from the earth the burden of these 23 armies. All right, so now we're going to see what's going on here. And I'm going to take some quotes from a passage by Srila Prabhupada in one of his classes. This class was given in London in 1970, let me check. 1975, March 10th. And is in the Bhagavad Gita, based on, when he's giving a class, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 2. I'll talk a little bit about the weapons first. Lord Balaram has two weapons, a plow and a club, from which he takes service when they're required. And Jiva Goswami explains, we referred to this verse number 12, that the weapons which were beyond the material world, since they were eternal, arrived with no effort, since they knew the Lord's intentions being conscious. The plow was named Samvartaka. The pestle, or the club, was named Sonanda. The bow was named Saranga, and the club was Kamodaki. And these same four weapons are mentioned in the Vishnu Purana. It should be understood that the Lord's chakra and Balaram's bow also appeared, since they were useful and not mentioned as coming from anywhere else. Then it is explained that Sudarshan chakra is the most powerful weapon of all. This will, Sudarshan, which is accepted by the personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, as his personal weapon, is the most powerful weapon, greater than the Brahmastras or similar other disastrous weapons. It is said in some of the Vedic literatures that this was given to him, to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, by Indra, although we know that these weapons are eternal associates of the Supreme Lord. So we also know that Krishna advanced himself for two purposes, which are paritranaya sadhunam, to give relief and deliver the devotees, and to vinashaya chaduskritam, to annihilate the demons. So in the class, Srila Prabhupada explains what this is all about. Well, we know that the Supreme Lord wants to have the association of his devotees, and some of the devotees are in the material world, and they're going through some problems and difficulties, and they're maybe being harassed by demoniac personalities. And he wants to enjoy the lila, because this is lila. Shrishti lila, it's called Shrishti lila, where he can be in association with these devotees who are going through difficulties, to encourage them and to enjoy their activities, and how, in spite of all problems and difficulties, they seek shelter of him, and they continually praise him and dedicate their lives to him. So we could understand that as practicing devotees, sadhakas, we belong in that category at some level. Maybe not the highest level, but at some level. And then to annihilate the demons. The other purpose of the advent of the Supreme Lord is to annihilate the demons. So it is explained by Srila Prabhupada in this class that to kill the demoniac propensities is what is the killing process in the age of Kali Yuga, in the Kali Yuga. To kill the demons means to stop their demonic activities by the astra. Astra means the weapon. And what is this weapon? In the Hare Krishna, exactly. Kirtan, Hari Sankirtan, which is spread by his associates. And then we have this verse, chapter 10, Canto 10, chapter 5, verse 32, where it explains how the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears. Let me get there. (11:532). Krishna Varnam Dusha Krishnam Sangopangastra Parshadam Yaknai Sankirtana Prayair Yajantihi Sumedasaha. In the age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead, who constantly sings the names of Krishna. Although his complexion is not blackish, he is Krishna himself. He is accompanied by his associates, servants, weapons, and confidential companions. And here in the translation, Sangopangastra Parshadam. Okay, so here comes the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sa-anga with his associates, Upa-anga, his servitors, Astra, those are the weapons, and Parshadam with his confidential companions. So what is the Astra, the weapon that Lord Chaitanya uses, is his associates. Why? Because his associates are selflessly and full-heartedly distributing Harinam Sankirtan and the chanting of the holy name and knowledge about our position as eternal servitors of the Supreme Lord. So these are his weapons versus the weapons that Krishna and Balaram are using to defeat the forces of Jarasandha. But Srila Prabhupada explains, go back to that, Srila Prabhupada explains that by spreading Hare Krishna movement, this is the Astra. Otherwise, to kill the demons is not, by life, it is not difficult. One slap is sufficient. You don't require other weapon. But real Krishna comes to kill or give protection. Listen to this. It's a very important point that Srila Prabhupada is making here. Because he is absolute. So we have to understand that when he's protecting the devotees and killing the demoniac propensities in the demons, because he is absolute, it is the same thing. And so Prabhupada speaks. If he's killing some demons, he's giving him protection. Or he given them protection, he stops the demoniac activities further to implicate himself or the activities, demoniac activities that they commit or we commit, to implicate ourselves, themselves in more trouble. Therefore, when Krishna kills one demon, that means that he saves him. He's not here to destroy, because Srila Prabhupada also explains in this class that how can anybody be killed? There is no way that we can be killed. Only the body can be changed, but we cannot be killed. So Krishna doesn't come to destroy. He also comes to destroy the demoniac tendencies to purify the performer of such demoniac activities. He saves him. The absolute. This is absolute. Either he protects his devotee or kills the demon. The result is the same. Therefore, he is called absolute. So now we're talking about how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes with his Astra, which is his associates, his confidential servitors, himself in the form of Lord Nityananda. And I found a passage which is very, very beautiful, and I thought I would share this with the class. I don't know how much time we have, but I can at least read for about 15 minutes. So here this incident is in the Madhurya Kanda, this episode, Madhya Kanda, chapter 5 of the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat. And here is the story about how they are performing Vyasa Puja in the house of Srivas Thakur. The more Srivas Thakur spoke, the more Nityananda repeated, yes, yes, yes. Because Srivas Pandit was actually giving Nityananda Prabhu instructions on how to perform the ceremony, this Vyasa Puja ceremony. Apparently, Lord Nityananda paid no heed to Srivas's words and seemed not to know which mantras to recite. He held the garland and muttered something softly underneath his breath, which nobody could hear. And he just looked all around. It seemed like Lord Nityananda was very confused. He was given a garland that he was going to be placing for the worship of Vyas, and he didn't know where to put it. He didn't know what mantras to recite. Srivas Pandit reported the matter to Lord Chaitanya because Nityananda Prabhu was saying, yes, 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 but then he didn't know how to proceed. And he said, your Shripad does not want to worship Srila Vyasadeva. The Lord immediately came to the presence of Nityananda and said, Nityananda, please listen to me. Offer the garland to Srila Vyasadeva and worship him. Nityananda saw that Chaitanya was there, and he immediately placed the garland upon the Lord's head. The fragrant flower garland on the Lord's curly hair made a beautiful sight. At that very moment, Lord Chaitanya revealed his six-armed form to Nityananda Prabhu. These are very important events. At that moment, Lord Chaitanya revealed his six-armed form to Nityananda Prabhu. The Lord held in his 6 hands the conch, disc, mace, and lotus of Vishnu, and the plow and club of Balaram. We were just talking about these weapons. Seeing this, Lord Nityananda Prabhu immediately went into an ecstatic trance and fell unconscious with no symptoms of life. All the devotees became very afraid and started praying, protect him, Krishna, protect him, Krishna, while the son of Jagannath Mishra roared loudly and repeatedly slapped his sides. There was such an intense atmosphere of intense devotion and emotions. Chaitanya then bent down to lift Nityananda up from the ground, saying, Nityananda, please get up and steady your mind. Listen to the chanting of the holy name that you have begun. The reason you descended to this material world is to propagate the chanting of the holy name. We said that the chanting of the holy name is the astra, is the weapon for this age of Kali. And now you have perfectly succeeded in this mission. What more do you want? You are the absolute proprietor of the treasure house of Krishna Prema. So we want to approach the house of Krishna Prema. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that Lord Nityananda is the way to get in. The embodiment of sublime devotional love. No one can receive Krishna Prema unless and until you distribute such nectar. And who is this you? Nityananda Prabhu. It's Lord Krishna in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu speaking to Nityananda. Unless you distribute this devotional love, no one can access it. Therefore, please get up and look around you. Glance mercifully upon your own beloved associates who surround you. You may distribute this greatest wealth to whomever you desire. And of course, we know that Nityananda desires to give it to everyone. If anyone nurtures even the slightest dislike for you, then although he may worship me, I will never accept him as dear to me. So we have to actually understand what is the position of Lord Nityananda. Because if we consider that he is inferior, then the Lord will never accept a person who thinks that way. Lord Chaitanya's words brought Nityananda out of his trance. And upon seeing again the Lord's six-handed form, he went into a state of great ecstasy. Nityananda Prabhu is none different from Ananta Shesh, in whose heart Gaurachandra is an eternal resident. He resides eternally in the heart of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Gaurachandra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the source of all incarnations and pastimes. Therefore, that he should manifest his six-armed form is not astonishing. Imagine being in that environment and being able to watch everything that is going on at that time. How long do we have? Good. In his incarnation as Ramachandra, he offered oblations to his departed father. At that time, his father, King Dasrath, appeared in person to receive the oblations. If this can be considered wonderful, then the Lord's six-armed form is also wonderful. However, all of this is natural for the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, because his pastimes are extraordinary and supramundane. We're hearing about the pastimes of the Supreme Lord, but to what depth, how deep can we go into that understanding, and how do we have the actual realizations and experiences? We hear about them, and by, as we progress down the path of devotion, their understanding will become greater and deeper. So we just have to keep going, because the further in we go in, the more is given to us and the more ecstasy can be experienced. Nityananda Prabhu's natural propensity is to serve Gaurachandra, and he is never distracted from this service, even for a moment. And we heard the classes of Amarendra Prabhu, who was here this past weekend, and how he was talking about Lakshman and Ramachandra. He was talking about Nityananda and Lord Gauranga. He was talking about Balaram and Krishna, and the position of servitorship that Lakshman and Nityananda and Balaram hold vis-a-vis the Supreme Lord. Just as Lakshman served Ramachandra constantly with his mind, body, and heart, similarly, Nityananda Prabhu constantly engages in Gaurachandra's loving devotional service. And at the beginning I was saying that it's not that the festival is behind us. We can take the festival into our hearts and keep it there and let it grow. And the same thing with any other festival that comes our way, for that we respect and we participate in and introduce into our consciousness, let them live inside of us. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the Lord of every living entity. He is unlimited and the source of everything, yet he enters the material realm and causes the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world. According to the verdict of the Vedas, he is the absolute truth and the supreme controller. Yet he remains unaffected by the phenomena of material nature. In spite of his supreme lordship over everything, Anantadev Sri Nityananda Prabhu is eternally engaged in rendering loving devotional service to Sri Gaurachandra. In every yuga and in every incarnation, his natural mood is to serve his Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. As Lakshman, he became the younger brother of Lord Ramachandra and served him constantly. He neglected eating, drinking, sleeping, and other such activities to constantly serve the lotus feet of Sri Ramachandra. Yet, he still felt unable to satisfy his intense desire to serve. His desire to serve was so overwhelming, is so overwhelming, that even though he just dedicated his full existence to the service of the Supreme Lord, his desire to serve was overwhelmingly greater than his actual service, and he couldn't be satisfied. And this is the position of the living entity. As we become purified, we want to serve more and more, but we can never be satisfied because there's always more. As Sri Balaram, he was the elder brother of Sri Krishna. Yet he could not forsake his attitude of service to the Lord, which springs from the deepest core of his very self. He always referred to Krishna as his master, and he was always in the mood of rendering loving devotional service to Krishna. So we know that there is no difference between Krishna and Balaram, but there is a big difference in the sense that Lord Krishna is the supreme absolute truth, the source of everything, and he who is to be worshipped and offered everything to. And Lord Balaram, who is an Amsa of Lord Krishna, is eternally his servitor. And there is another personality who is in the pastimes of Sri Krishna, who is also an eternal servitor. Krishna is tops, right? And who is this personality? Radharani. Radharani. Krishna refers to her as her supreme mistress. But let's remember that Krishna is the source of everything. Radharani is a different tattva. Such is the wonderful nature of Sri Nityananda Ananta Shesh. Only the most foolish rascals will see a difference between Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Balaram. One who disrespects a devotee who is fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, Sri Vishnu, commits a great offense at the very lotus feet of Lord Vishnu himself. And it's important, this point is very important, because this is our natural propensity. This is actually what defines our being, which is to be loving servants of the Supreme Lord. So when we see an example by Lakshman, by the life of Lord Nityananda, by Lord Balaram, who are exemplifying that which we should aspire to eventually achieve 100%, and we disrespect that, we are really causing great damage to ourselves, and we don't want that. Sri Lakshmi Devi, the goddess of fortune, is so elevated that Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva offer praise and worship to her, yet she is naturally inclined to serve the lotus feet of Sri Vishnu, Krishna. Lord Balaram, Ananta Shesh, is the omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yet his natural inclination is to serve the Supreme Lord. And this has been repeated over and over. I mentioned this as I read this so many times for us to understand the position of Lord Nityananda, Lord Balaram, Lakshman. Therefore, Sri Gaurachandra feels most satisfied when he can describe the glorious and wonderful devotional attitude of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. It gives the Supreme Lord Sri Chaitanya extreme pleasure to be able to glorify Lord Nityananda and detail all the activities of service of Lord Nityananda to him. It is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gaurachandra, to be subservient to the devotional love of his devotees. Another extremely important point, because the gopis are doing so much, they're dedicating their lives exclusively to rendering service, to the point that Krishna says, how can I repay you? Let your glorious acts be your own reward. So here it is explained that it is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Gaurachandra, to become subservient or to be subservient to the devotional love of his devotees. Therefore, the Lord especially likes to glorify his own dear most surrendered devotees. It gives him great pleasure. There is a special significance in hearing the Supreme Lord glorify his own devotees. The Lord and his devotees like to glorify each other, and in this way increase their attachment for one another. I have faithfully presented that which has been propounded in the Vedas and Puranas about the relationship between the Supreme Lord Sri Vishnu and his unalloyed devotees. So we have 1 second left. Would anybody like to? I would recommend this. The chapter. This chapter is magnificent, but all the chapters of this Chaitanya Bhagavad are magnificent. Well, thank you so much. Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Nityananda Ram ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindanalayatasham Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Akom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobham
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Kriya Priti Manti Pasyanti Panti Kayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrahasya Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham
names, but I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, of all false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. Oh, my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and when will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? Oh, Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri